troops were in distress or in debt or discontented gathered around him, and he became their commander. About 400 men were with him.
You want to turn this one, Christian? I get pretty busy during the week with sono stuff and hospital stuff, and had some time this week, and even got doing some siding and painting, and so my sermon prep time gets cut out quite a bit, and so I'm always looking for a little bit of assistance or help. And so most of this information is coming from, I have to disclose my source, Downey Adventist Church in Los Angeles. Bill Ashmuck is the one who is the head elder there, so he had this in the archives, and so that's a fair bit of the information, and some of it is mine. But those of you who are thinking that you can't do this, give a sermon or presentation or anything like that, because the resources are not there. The transcript is there, the video is there, the slides are there, and then also the handout, which each of you should have gotten, is all there, and it's 10 years worth. So there's a lot of 200 sermons or something for you to choose to. So did anybody get a handout?
No.
Not yet. Christian is going to give you a handout. So while he's doing that, we're going to go ahead and get started here. The handout is specifically for Eve, to make sure she's paying attention. Sometimes I wonder if there's something else going along. That row right there is kind of dangerous. I don't know if you guys kind of keep track of that for me. It's pretty dangerous there. But we're going to have a quiz at the end to make sure that you filled out all the questions right. Okay, 1863, Columbus, Mississippi. After decorating the graves of her two sons who died in the Civil War as Confederate soldiers, an elderly woman also decorated the two mounds over in the corner of the cemetery, and some people were commenting, and they're like, "What are you doing? Those are Union soldiers. Your sons died serving the Confederate Army." She said, "I know, but somewhere in the North, there's a young mother or a young wife who mourns for these two fallen soldiers." And this woman, along with a few others, set in motion that event known as Memorial Day. 3 years later, in 1866, the custom of placing flowers on graves for veterans officially began in May of 1866 in Waterloo, New York. 2 years after that, in 1869, General John A. Logan, the President of the Army of the Republic, which, that's quite a title, President of the Grand Army of the Republic. Anyway, General John A. Logan was the President of the Grand Army of the Republic, declared that May 30 would be a day to decorate the flowers and graves of comrades who died in defense of their country during the late rebellion. After World War I, that day was also included to be for all soldiers of all wars. Here recently, we've also included other peoples who have died serving others. Firefighters, policemen, other people like that. And so Memorial Day, we remember our heroes, our fallen heroes, military heroes, and those who have served others being heroes. But most of all, I'm asking you, have you thought of who your personal hero is? Do you have a personal hero? Would you lay a heart or a ribbon or flowers on somebody? Somebody who's died or brave. Maybe they're not famous people. Maybe they don't have to be Congressional Medals of Honor. But they were heroes to us. They helped us out They stood in the gap. They served for us. Maybe it was a trusted adult where you were growing up that helped you out in some way, or a friend that helped you through a difficult time or situation. There's lots of people who can be heroes to us. And if we're really honest with ourselves, probably most of us would like to be a hero to somebody else. Wouldn't you like to have it listed on your grave that you were a hero? Wouldn't you like to wear that badge that's purple, shaped like a heart? Wouldn't you like to make a difference in somebody else's life? Not just to live for ourselves, but to live for somebody else. And maybe that's a spouse, maybe that's a family member, maybe that's a workmate, maybe that's a neighbor. I think all of us desire our lives to matter. And I hope that ultimately we all desire for us to be a hero to God, to be a hero for God. That's the kind of people that I want to be accounted to. I want to be considered part of God's heroes. When I was at Union College, I remember a hero of mine. I really wanted to be a doctor. None of my family members were doctors. None of my friends were doctors or in the medical field. But I just kind of had the idea that I would be good at it. I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be able to help people. I wanted to be able to make a difference. I wanted to be able to do something that mattered. So I studied hard. I was really intense. I was gung-ho. I was, all in, all the time. I shadowed docs. I spent time docs. I went, read. I subscribed to the. There's actually a magazine called the New Physician, or Pre-Med Magazine, or something like that. I read every single one. Every time they came out, I read it cover to cover. Wasn't even medical yet, but I just loved it. But I knew that I wasn't very smart, but like most wonderful German reputation, I was very stubborn and dedicated. I remember hours and hours and hours in the lab, in studying hall at Jorgensen Hall. One of the professors that helped me through this, that, I remember organic chemistry. If you've talked to anybody who has gone through pre-med, organic chemistry kind of separates the wheat from the tares, so to speak. It's very, very hard, challenging course, organic chemistry. You have to pretty much get an A in organic chemistry or you're not going to be a doc. So I remember the first test in organic chemistry, I got a C. And I really had kind of a crisis of identity. I got an A in biology, I got an A in general chemistry, I got a C in organic chemistry. I went to the professor, whose name was Dr. David Novak, and I said, this is not going to work. This doesn't fit in my plan of being in med school. And he said, yeah, he said, you're slacking, you need to study. I'm like, I've been studying all the time, what's wrong? I mean, how could I study more? And he says, okay, come back to my office at a certain time and I'll help you. So I spent time with Dr. Novak. He got me on to the idea of how to study. He taught me better, effective methods of learning the information. And so, him and I kind of got to know each other pretty well. Well, one day I was in Jorgensen Hall, and I was talking to somebody in the hallway, and he just kind of walked by, just kind of, he wasn't slow, I mean, he was always deliberate, so he was kind of usually whistling. He's walking by and just kind of went by. And then he turned around and he looked at me and he's like, you been accepted to med school yet? And I'm like, no. You'd be the one I told. No. And he's like, how about Loma Linda? They accept you yet? I'm like, no. Do you know something I don't know? He's like, oh, okay. And he just kept walking off. And I kind of I said, hey, I want to talk to him about that. And he just kept walking off, just like that's kind of a strange question to ask. So about this was about, I want to say it was later in the year of my senior year. So that was like November or December, probably 1996. All through that time earlier that year, you submit your application, and this is back before word processors, so you had to actually type it out. And I remember typing out 7 different applications to 7 different medical schools, And, and the spacing is really small, so you have to line up the stupid typewriter, make sure that it's not in, and then if you did it wrong, you had to start over because you didn't want any, whiteout on your application, and then they would send you a, if you made it through the application process, the initial screening, they'd send you another packet to fill out, and part of that was they wanted all these questions answered, and you had to basically type that out, and you had to type out a mission statement for your life, and then send those on, and if they liked that, then they would offer you a slot to come to interview. And so most of the time, by August, September, most of the round 1, round 2 medical students had already had interviews. They hadn't necessarily been accepted yet, but they already had interviews. And I had done, the application, I got the secondaries done, I had, a few schools call me, but not from Loma Linda. Nobody from Loma Linda, and nobody had offered me an interview spot. So anyway, as time goes on, the Christmas break came, and I kind of remember, getting ready for finals and doing the end of the year stuff and all that stuff. Didn't really think much about it, and then came back in January, and the next time I would talk to him about that, and I didn't have really another class after that with him, and so I didn't see him that much. Well, I remember the day I said that I was in this little apartment. Sherry and I were married just west of Union College, and I remember getting the mail, and I remember flipping through the junk mail and stuff, and there's a letter in there. Well, that's interesting. It says Loma Linda. I'm like, did I screw something up? Did I mess up the secondary application? Did I forget to put something on there? Because I wasn't expecting. I hadn't heard anything, and so I ripped open the letter, and I remember exactly. I was like, I almost couldn't believe it. It's like, you've been accepted into Loma Linda University's graduation class of 2001, and it takes so much effort to get to that point, but yet that's like the starting block. You're not a doctor, you're not through medical school, but it takes so much effort to get to that point. Hours and hours of studying for MCATs and studying for tests and things. So anyway, I spent the rest of the day, I didn't go to class all the day, I spent the rest of the day talking to people, calling people, and I were running down the school at Union, waving the letter, showing it to everybody, and as time goes on, I finished up school, I finished up at Union College, and it never occurred to me until I was done. I said, I have to talk with Dr. Novak. I said, I have to ask him. And so, about a little time after graduation, I talked with him, and I said, okay, you talked with me in December. I got an acceptance letter in January. Did you do something there? And he's like, well, he said, I asked you if you were accepted in med school, and you said no, and he said, you should be there. He says, you will be a good doc. And he says, I made it my goal to get you there. And he said, I had a choice of going to some meetings. And I chose to go to Southern California over Christmas and to go to some meetings on education presentations for college kids and stuff. And so I took one day off, and I went to Loma Linda. I met the Dean of Admissions, and I said, you need to accept this guy from Nebraska. I don't know what your hang-up is, but I'm vouching for him. He's going to do good for you. Put him in your class. And I'm like, so you're the one that got me into med school, and I didn't even know about it? It wasn't me at all? God truly used that guy, answered my prayers, and he's one of my heroes. He's a hero that kind of this sermon is a little bit about, because he didn't do it for his own glory. He didn't do it for his service notch or his mark on the wall. He did it purely for me. So today's sermon is called Hero Material. Do we have the stuff to be heroes? Back when I was a kid, there was a song by Bonnie Tyler that was very popular. And I can't remember exactly the name of the song, but it was like, I need a hero. The lyrics go like, I need where have all the good men gone? Where have all the gods? Where's the streetwise Hercules to fight the rising odds? Isn't there a white knight upon a fiery steed? Late at night I toss and turn and dream of what I need. I need a hero. I'm holding out for a hero to the end of the night. He's got to be strong, he's got to be fast, he's got to be fresh from the fight. I need a hero. Pretty popular song back in 1984. And I think even that was used maybe a few times in Platte Valley for some events or activities. But do we have the stuff that heroes are made of? Do we have to get bitten by a radioactive spider to be a hero? Do we have to be afraid of kryptonite from another planet? Do we have to drive a cool car? There are some things we can do to ourselves to be on that list of heroes. But no, it's not a mythical movie character that we're talking about. We're talking about real heroes. Real heroes like the one that are found in the Bible. And in fact, there are so many that we can't talk about them all today. But there are a group of guys that the Bible specifically talks about that are David's mighty men. The other band of brothers, David's mighty men. So I want you to open your Bibles to 2 Samuel 23, the scripture reading for this morning. And let's read from that the list of heroes and their activities that we're talking about this morning. Second Samuel 23. But before we get into that, I want to give you just a little bit of the backstory of what's going on in this section of the Bible. A few years ago, an interesting study was undertaken by the World Book of Almanac Facts. They asked 2,000 American 8th graders who their heroes were. If you were asked who your hero was, what would you respond? What do you think? In the year 2000, there was a study on 8th graders and who are their heroes. What do you think they came up with? They said athletes, media personalities, TV stars, movie stars, all mythical characters. Nobody made the list who was a statesman, a politician, a painter, a musician, an architect. Nobody of a Bible character. No doctors, no astronauts, no nurses, no paramedics, no firefighters. So what truly are heroes made of? These 8th graders had the idea that heroes had to be supervillains. They had to be TV stars. They had to shoot basketballs. They had to throw footballs. Do you have to make it big to be a hero? Do you have to have lots of money? Do you have to be famous? Do you have to be important to be listed in the list of heroes? Let's look at this here in David as we talk about our list of heroes. So we had to turn to 2 Samuel 23. A little of the backstory before that is in 1 Samuel, where Samuel is out on an errand for God. God has instructed him to find a new king. So he goes to the house of Jesse, and he's looking specifically for a king, and he goes through Jesse's sons, and he starts looking at them, and they kind of do their thing before him. They kind of walk before him, and God says, no, that's not the one. The next one goes through, no, that's not the one. The next one goes through, no, that's not the one. On and on they go, and until they get to the very end, and Samuel says, We don't have a king yet. God told me that I was going to find a king here. There's got to be somebody else. Wait a minute, Jesse says. Wait a minute. There's another guy. There is one more guy, but you would want him. He's a little small. He's the run of the litter. In fact, he's out just watching the sheep. Samuel says, go get him. God wants to see what he's all about. And then we can learn the lesson of what it takes to be a hero. That God looks not on the outward appearance, but at the heart. Because David had the heart that God was looking for. And in the coming years, David would recruit to Saul's kingdom as a musician. He kills Goliath. He's put in charge of the armies of Israel. He befriends the king's son, Jonathan. And one day they're coming home from war, and people start singing about this hero. Saul has killed his thousands. David has killed his 10,000s. Saul sees the writing on the wall and tries to begin to kill David. In 1 Samuel 22, 1 and 2, it says, David left Gath and escaped to the cave of Adullam. When his brothers and his fathers and household heard about it, they went down to him there. All those who were in distress and in debt or discontented gathered around him, and he became their commander. About 400 men were with him. So, Saul's trying to kill David. David's going to be the next king. Saul knows that. What does David do? He runs to the hill country in the caves of Adullam. And who follows him out there? Are these people that are supportive of Saul? Are these important people in the country? Are these wealthy people? Are these people with a lot of influence and a lot of responsibility? No, it's 400 of the distressed, the indebted, the discontented. Does that sound like a good making for a fighting army? You know, in the last 4 years, I had the joy of building Sono Anesthesia and Kearney Regional, and you know, we essentially have 600 or 700 employees now, and a lot of those, you know, I haven't been involved with, but kind of the key players I have. And you know, it's interesting as you ask for people to help you out and to get involved with the project. You know, they send you resumes, there's phone calls, there's initial kind of conversations and interviews, and then it kind of, you know, gets down to, you know, more serious as you get to hiring a candidate. And I can tell you for sure, I can tell you exactly for sure, my biggest concern, my number one concern, is that we hire discontented, distressed, and bad people. No? No, that we hire good people with good attitudes that want to work, that catch the vision, that know what we're about. David, on the other hand, doesn't have that chance. These guys are from the low men on the totem pole. They're outcasts. They're kind of average, ordinary guys that have been thrown out. They sit there in the cave, in the caverns, and David is becoming their commander. God is working on David's heart, and he shapes him to be a leader that God wants him to be. That working overflows to these men that have come to join David. So let's look and see at some of the things and happenings, and I hope you got your notes here handy, because some of these will start coming up here. So here are some of the decisions that these men under David's leadership decided to do. Decision number 1, I will do what's right even when the odds are against me. I will do what's right even when the odds are against me. If you have your Bibles open, which you should have, to 2 Samuel 23, there are the list there of David's names of his mighty warriors. Joseph Basheth, B-A-S-H, Bashbeth. Well, that's a little challenging. The Tekomonite was the chief of the 3. He raised his spear against 800 men whom he killed in one encounter. 800 men. One guy kills 800 guys. Let's just think about that just for a little bit. There's 800 people he killed one day. So let's just say your guy 798. 798 people have come up against, what's this guy's name again? Joseph. And you're out to go fight him. Probably not feeling so confident. He's already killed 798 people. Good chances that you're not going to take him down as well. This is one truly bad dude. He's like Braveheart, Gladiator, and Rambo all wrapped up in one. His name literally means the one who is first. And he finds himself on that day surrounded by insurmountable odds. I don't think I've ever had such a bad day where 800 people wanted to kill me. Instead of turning his tail and running, instead of saying, "That's too hard, God, I can't take that. This is asking too much of me," he grabs his sword and goes with God. You ever been in a spot, something like that? You ever think like, wow, this is too much for me? Maybe it wasn't physical life or death. Maybe it wasn't something that you were fighting for, but maybe it was a new job. God, why did you lead me down this path to this new job? And it's horrible. Everything bad that they said I'd have to do in the interview is 10 times worse. The people are bad. The work's bad. It's hard. Maybe you didn't know the outcome. Think of Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years fighting for freedom in South Africa. 27 years fighting for freedom. Not on a podium, not in a lecture hall, but in prison. Martin Luther King, who gave everything he had so his children would not be judged by the content of their character or the color of their skin. That's doing what's right when it's tough. That's a true freedom. Or that's a true mighty men. So when my kids were little, I had the idea that skiing as a family would be fun. So we decided that we were going to try to learn how to ski. This took a little bit of convincing, as Sherry was not exactly on board with that. She was envisioning body casts and all kinds of children with bandages and things like that. I figured it would be tough. I figured it would be challenging, but fun in the end, something we could do together as a family. So we got all the stuff together. You gotta plan your trip. You gotta get some transportation. You gotta figure out where you're going. You need some lift tickets. You gotta get a hotel lined up. The day before, we went to the rental shop. We got ski boots. We got boards or poles or boards. We're all already excited to go to the mountain. So today we're going out the mountain. Okay, so we get onto the, how many people have you skied before? Yeah, there's a few people who skied before. Yeah. Is it pretty straightforward? Is it kind of like, just wake up one day and just kind of go get a ticket and let's go? We're standing in line. There's two kids. There's Sherry and I. We're helping these kids get on the, and lift chair comes around, picks somebody up. Lift chair comes around, picks somebody up. Lift chair comes around, picks somebody up. And I'm like, this is not going to be pretty. So it comes around, and it comes around behind you, and they slow it down. We got kids. We got me here and two kids, and then there's Sherry. And I'm like, I just wonder what's going to happen here because I know how to ski. I've done this before. Sure enough, the chair comes down, and it just mows everybody down right there onto the snow. I'm like, wow, great start. We're doing well. All the entire people that are behind him, the chair has to stop, and they have to help us up. And so we eventually get on the chair. We get to the top, and most of the time it's following your way down the mountain, and kind of rest and stop. And people were having some okay time. Caleb and Kylie were kind of learning and doing okay until the weather didn't cooperate. It started to get cloudy, it started to get cold, it was mid-morning or late morning, and then it kind of took a turn for the worse. There was a lot of cold, wet, tired, and hungry that were happening. So I looked and looked and looked, and I tried to find one thing, one sign. There was a sign that I was looking for on the mountain that everybody's pretty excited to see. It's a sign about this big, it's green, and it says, easiest way down. That's what you want to look for when you're tired, cold, and hungry, and your kids are melting down. Easiest way down. Do you ever want that sign in life? When you're in the midst of a problem, when you're facing 800 people and they want to kill you, do you want the easiest way down? Heroes don't look for those signs. They are not looking for the easiest path through life. They don't retreat from adversity. I'm talking about the employee who sees the under-table deals and has nothing to do with it. I'm talking about the spouse who thinks the relationship is over, yet refuses to give up and refuses to quit using God in the relationship. I'm talking about the teenager who doesn't go with the flow, who stands up for God. I'm talking about the people who come to church, even though they're fans, they're family, they're friends, and all the people around them are going to the football game. When you're surrounded by 800 guys that want to kill you, and all you want to do is turn around and run, heroes stand firm for God and don't waver. These are the names of David's mighty warriors. 2 Samuel 23:8. These are the names of the mighty warriors. So decision number 1, no retreat. I will do what's right even when the odds are against you. I think our generation has lost that a little bit. It seems that society says all about me. It's what I want, what I feel, and what I should have. There is no absolute moral truth. There is no standing for what's right, standing for what's wrong. It used to be that when you went on the battlefield, you were fighting for a greater good. There was a reason that you went to war. Number 2, I will not give up even when none stand with me. I will be the last man standing. Even if everyone else has their backs turned on God, I will stand firm. I will be the leader in my circle of friends. I will be the leader in my church. I will be the last guy in church. I will be here and serving God if it's only just me. When you look back on 2 Samuel 23, verses 9 and 10, next to him standing, next to, pronounce this guy's name right, next to him were 2 other guys. Eleazar, son of Donai, the Adohite. Next to him was Eleazar, son of Adonai, the Adonite. As one of the 3 mighty warriors, he was with David when they taunted the Philistines gathered at Pas-dammim for the battle. When the Israelites retreated, Eleazar stood his ground and struck down Philistines till his hand grew so tired and frozen to the sword. The Lord brought about a great victory that day. No one else returned to help, other than later they returned to strip the dead. Now, if you look at this text only in the companion passage in 1 Chronicles 11, it is the same story, but in that story, there is told that David is standing right next to Eleazar, and they fight together. The 2 of them stayed to fight, and they fought so long and so hard all day long that his hand literally was cramped tight on the sword, and it was frozen to the sword. There is no giving up. Everyone else retreated. I'm not sure the conversation that happened with David and Eleazar, but eventually the Philistines decided to come and fight these 2 guys. Everybody else turned and ran. They fought and fought all day long the battle raged on, and his hand cramped up so hard that he could not let go of the sword. Have you ever held on so tight? Have you ever had your hand so tight with God that you couldn't let go? We were talking about this morning in Job. I think Job had his hand in God's hand so tight that he couldn't let go. All fingers were locked right there, strapped around that sword all day long. Now sometimes the Bible gives us some immediate victories and the people don't have to do anything. Sometimes you come out of Egypt with no effort at all and God does all the work. God wipes out the Egyptian army and the Red Seas, and the Red Sea opens up, and the Israelites don't do anything, they just walk. They go on to Jericho, they walk around the circles, the walls fall down, everything is good, right? Sometimes it's that easy. Sometimes you have to stand and fight till your hand cramps up, till you can't fight any longer. You can't let go of the sword. Decision number 2. No reserve. I will never give up, even when none stand with me. No reserve. Keep going until there is nothing left. The scripture says that we are to love God with all our hearts, with all our mind, and with all our strength. All our hearts, all our mind, all our strength. None left back. I have a saying that in business and in controversy, choose your battles. Do you want to go to the mat for this blank? Do you want to go to the mat for this event, or for this problem, or for this issue? When you go to the mat, you put the boxing gloves on, you take your hands to the boxing gloves, little dinger sounds, guys come out and they fight. There's going to be one guy left standing, the other guy is going to be passed out on the mat. Do you want to go there? For me, I want to go there with God every single time. I want to be included with David's mighty men. Decision number 3. I will stand in the gap for those who are with me. Back to your Bibles, 2 Samuel 23, verses 11 and 12. Next to him was Shammah, the son of Aggai the Herite. When the Philistines banded together at a place, there was full a field of lentils. Israel's troops fled from them. I'm seeing a pattern here. David's mighty men stand, and the Israelite army runs away. But Shammah took his stand in the middle of the field. He defeated and struck the Philistines down, and the Lord brought a great victory. Once again, the guys are rounded about, and almost kind of sounds like maybe they're out foraging for a little bit of food in the lentil field. They're gathering for some, soup later on. You don't know the time frame, you don't know what's happening, you don't know, what the past event is about. But the farmers have to grow barley, and barley grows at about the same time as the lentils grow. So they often grow together until harvest. These were very compatible crops, and they were harvested together. So the lentils probably represented the food that the Israelites were going to have for the wintertime. If nobody was going to defend the food, if nobody's going to stick around and say, hey, this is my meal for the next 4 months, they might starve. Everybody kind of ran away except for Shammah. Shammah stood there and said, not today, not on my watch. The Philistines are not going to take this land. I don't know what happens. Maybe he grabs his sword, maybe he grabs his shield, maybe he grabs whatever, ties a rope around his waist, and he says, come on, Philistines, bring it on. I got God on my side. The Philistines start freaking out. There's one dude standing in the field. It's a trap, right? There's one guy there. Everybody else is kind of waiting until we get in the middle of the field. They're going to ambush us. Shammah's just standing there. Eventually, they attack him, and they realize it's not a trap. Nobody comes to Shammah's aid. He defends the field, defends himself, and defeats the Philistines single-handedly. The Lord brought about a great victory that day because Shammah failed to retreat, failed to give up, failed to run away when everybody else did. God recognizes that the end, God recognized Shamlin in the end and comes to aid in his help. And there's something very important here. No regret. When you're standing in the gap for other people, you have no regret. You have no regret when you do the right thing for somebody else. Decision number 3, no regret. I will stand in the gap for those who are around me. Another story here, interesting story. A few years ago in the political world, Senator John Stennis, a Democrat from Mississippi, and Senator Mark Hatfield, a Republican from Oregon. They were two opposite people, not only in political views, but in approach to life. This was right after Vietnam, and America was struggling to recover from that. John Stennis was chair of the Armed Services Committee, and he sought to build confidence in America's military and bring might back to the armed forces. He served as a soldier and believed in that cause greatly. On the other side, Mark Hatfield had also served in the military, but came back with a very different opinion. His idea was that problems could be solved without going to war, and that these two men often had lively debates on the Senate floor on how the country should be moved forward. So one night, as Senator John Stennis was coming home from work about 8 o'clock, it was January, it was dark, it was cold. A couple of young rebels decided that they were going to take advantage of this guy. They jumped him, they started to rob him. He had on an inexpensive wristwatch. He had 25 cents in his pocket. But the thieves really wanted more than that. Very disappointed that they couldn't get more, they began to take their aggression out on him. Eventually, in their panic, one of them shot the senator twice and ran off. John Stennis was still alive, and he barely crawled to his house, called for help. He was rushed to a near hospital, and mass chaos ensued. When the senator arrived, lots of press, lots of people, lots of questions. Everybody was trying to figure out what exactly happened. About this time, an unassuming man strolls into the hospital and notices that the switchboard in the ER is sitting there empty, nobody manning the phone calls and routing questions. And he says to himself, yeah, I think I can do that. I think I can handle that. So he just sits down, starts answering phone calls, tells people what he knows, tells people about the situation, tries to help where he can. He does this all night long. While Stennis is in the triage, is in trauma, he's in surgery, all night long, he sits there and just answers phone calls, helps out where he can. Eventually in the morning, John is gone through surgery. He wakes up and very, very sick, but he survives. People start to realize that this guy sitting here at the desk is not really supposed to be there. So they kind of come and think, hey, why are you here? What's going on? Senator Hatfield stands up and says, John Stennis is a guy I truly respect. I want to do anything I can to help him out. And then he walks off. He didn't have to do that. He could have said, I'm a senator. I don't have to answer phone calls. I don't have to stay up here all night long. Somebody else should do that. Don't they pay somebody to do this? Didn't ask questions. Didn't want glory. Just stood in the gap for somebody that he truly honored and respected, answering phone calls all night long. There is no regret when you stand in the gap for somebody else, when you do the right thing and expect nothing in return. But you say, Lord, I want to do something big. I want to do something mighty. I want to be somebody. I want to be important. Sit down on the switchboard, start answering phone calls. Grab a mop, grab a broom. Even the low man on the totem pole is a mighty man in God's eyes. Maybe you're stopping to help a guy on the side of the road. Maybe you're changing a tire. Maybe you're giving somebody a lift. Maybe you're taking care of a widow down the street. Maybe it's just stopping to ask somebody, how's it going? Be a friend. Be a good listener. That is what I want to be known for. Somebody who stands in the gap for others. Our society teaches us not to get involved. Mind your own business. Worry about yourself. Don't get personal. But that's not what God says. God says, stand in the gap and you will have no regret. Decision number 4. Most important. All the other decisions fail in comparison to this one. I will have no other gods before Jehovah. I will devote my life to the one who is above me. I will devote my life to the one who created me. Back to 2 Samuel 23, 13 through 17. During harvest time, 3 of the 30 chief warriors came down to David at the cave of Adullam, and when the band of Philistines was camped at the valley of Ramon, at that time David was in the stronghold, and the Philistine garrison was at Bethlehem. David longed for water, and he said, oh, that someone would give me a drink of water from that well near Bethlehem. So 3 of the mighty warriors broke through the Philistine lines and drew water from the well near the gate of Bethlehem and carried it back to David. What did he do? He refused to drink it. Instead, he poured it out before the Lord. Far be it from me, Lord, to do this, he said. It is not the blood of men who went at their risk. Is this not the blood of men who went at risk of their lives? And David would not drink it. Such were the exploits of 3 mighty warriors. Now this story causes all kinds of problems for us because we wonder why David is sending off his men to do this. And it may be that he didn't send them, but they went on their own. It may be that David is thinking and hanging out and saying, I wish I could go down there and get a drink. I wish the Philistines weren't there. I wish the Philistines weren't on God's town of Bethlehem. I wish I lived in a free country. I wish I could just go there and get some water. But his 3 warriors took him literally at his word. The action hero movies kick in, and I'm wondering what these 3 guys did and what they looked like. I wonder what the Philistines were thinking. Is this an attack? 3 guys come up, 3 mighty men run over the wall and get water, and then they race away? Really? All they wanted was water? Where's the rest of them? Philistines look around. What's happening? What was that for? David doesn't drink the water, but instead he gives it as an offering to God. He pours it out before the Lord as an offering. He says, my men's lives are not worth it. I can't drink this. It's an offering to God. And so we see that these guys who were distressed, indebted, and discontent become mighty men willing to risk their lives just for a little water for their friend. They were changed, and now they are the kind of people that live without reserve, without regret, and will not retreat. Jesus comes 1,000 years after David in the Bible. He's also called the Son of David. And his life looks very similar to David's in this regard. David gathers a ragtime around him, and Jesus gathers a bunch of rough and heady fishermen. Because these apostles spent time with, or because the mighty men spent time with David, they grow to love God. Because the 11 spend time with Jesus, they grow into servants of God. Jesus changes everything when you're willing to live a life with no regret, no reserve, and no retreat. That is the making of a hero. To the distressed, indebted, and discontented, Jesus says, come, follow me, and I will make you mighty men. Micah 6:8. He has shown you, O man, what is good. And what does God require of you? Number one, to act justly. To love mercy. And number three, to walk daily with your God. When you act justly, you do not retreat. When you stand for justice, when you love mercy, you go the extra mile. There is no reserve. When you don't quit, when you walk with God in humility, there is no regret. Did everybody get them right? Did everybody fill out the blanks? Did everybody get what they needed to? Decision number one. I will blank.
What's right?
What? Do what's right, even when the odds are against me. The names of David's mighty warriors listed there in 2 Samuel 23:8 did what is right. Decision number two. I will
Not give up.
not give up, even when no one stands with me. 2 Samuel 3:29, 9 through 10. No one stood with Eleazar. Decision number three. I will stand in the gap,